Most respected Thai dear sisters, good morning. Today is the 3rd of November in the year 2020. We are in the Lower Hamlet in the Assembly of Stars Meditation Hall, the Dharma Nectar Temple. Our gatha for this week is the gatha that you use when you put your feet out of bed and look for your slippers. And it's a gatha to help us continue our practice of compassion when we wake up in the morning. And I think we better listen to the 3 sounds of the bell. So, dear Thai, dear Sangha, first of all, we want to look with the eyes of love. That is the first gatha. And then we want to feel compassion. And if we can feel compassion for the small insects, then we can also feel compassion for the bigger animals and such as human beings. So, when I first read this gatha, I thought that maybe it's for children, for very young novices, because the way it's worded, it just sounds like it might be for someone who's very young. But then I realized it's very good for me too, although I wasn't so young when I received it. And it really helped me in the day to come to be aware of my steps and to be aware of the little insects and not to get irritated with them, like I used to get irritated with the insects. In the Vietnamese, it's a little bit the same. I think the English is more or less the same. It's not quite the same if it says, may you quickly transcend fear, huh? It's not quite the same in Vietnamese. It doesn't have transcend fear. It has the word transcend. It's like you were born again in a happier form. Mm. But I think it's if you put transcend fear, then it rhymes with care. Please take care. Transcend fear. And one thing about the Vietnamese gathas, they always rhyme, so it makes it easier to learn them. And then this bodhisattva becomes the bodhisattva who transcends fear. Mm. Well, it's a little bit different in Vietnamese. The bodhisattva who helps you to transcend, to go to a beautiful land. So I have been experimenting this week with practicing gathas in English, because until now I practiced them in Vietnamese. And some people have given me feedback when they practice gathas in English, and they say it's very difficult to remember them. It takes a long time to learn them by heart. So I've been experimenting and making the gathas shorter, and every line 5 syllables. And sometimes if I can find a rhyme, putting a rhyme in to try and make them easier. I don't know if that will help. But anyway, I will give them to a few people so they can try out and see if it helps them to memorize more quickly. I can read some example if you like, just for your interest. All day and all night, all creatures beware, if I step on you, may you transcend fear. Homage to the Bodhisattva transcends fear. I wake up and smile, life begins anew. Live it to the full, look on all with love. I walk on the earth, such a miracle, every step reveals the wonder of life. Make the bed with joy and tidy my life, guard body and mind, end sorrow and strife. Little bit nursery rhyme. I wash these hands that all may have, hands blessed to save this planet Earth. Cleansing my face, cleansing my heart, the source of joy fills my body. Urinating now, there is an exchange. Are we really two? No less and no more. From atop the hill, from deep in the earth, water flows and flows. Gratitude flows too. This robe adorns me and adorns my world. Here is the pure land in hills and rivers. Forgetfulness is dark and mindfulness brings light, which shines upon the world and ends the darkest night. Yeah, that is just some examples if anybody wants to have fun making English gathas with 5 or 6 syllables, and if you can, to make them rhyme. So to summarize about singing together, it's a wonderful way to collect energy at the beginning of a session of Dharma sharing or happiness meeting or beginning anew. Sometimes we come in and we all feel a little bit separate from each other. And if we are able to sing, it brings us together in a wonderful way. So even if you feel that your voice is not very good, you're not a singer yet, please join in. And please be there for the singing before the walking meditation. I think Sister Thoại Nghiêm said something about that. It's an important part of being together. Sometimes I have to make a little bit of effort to join in the singing because maybe I don't like the song very much. But I always remind myself that I'm only one drop in the Sangha river, and I need to do my best to contribute. So I sing along. And if you don't understand French and it's a French song, sing along. Otherwise, we just have the French, we only have 2 or 3 people singing. Learn the songs so that you can join in. And if you are, what happens sometimes is that we sing the song in English, and then somebody has the idea, oh, let's sing the same song in French. But people who haven't learnt the song off by heart in French, they don't know what page it's on. So we should let people know what page the French is on, and everybody try and join in, even if your pronunciation is not correct. At least the notes will be correct. So that is the main purpose of our singing. And then the second thing about our singing is that it needs to convey the Dharma. It needs to convey the practice. So we have to feel what we are singing and feel our practice in what we are singing. You know, when we sing breathing in, breathing out, and we make the gesture, I am blooming as a flower. Your hands should really bloom like a flower. You should really feel your hands are blooming. It's like a dance. And the mountain should be really solid. One time when people do, I am free, I am free, I am free. One time when I was watching Thai, I saw Thai do like this, I am free, I am free, I am free. Yeah, and this is another way we can do, because your freedom is to cut off the bonds of attachment. But one time when a retreatant was watching while I was singing breathing in, breathing out, and they said that watching me do the gestures really helped them to practice. I think that's because I was doing my best to put my heart into making them have meaning. Yeah. So, dear sisters, today I would like us to look at the subject of noble silence. So, noble silence we can understand in different ways. Noble silence in Sino-Vietnamese is Tịnh Khẩu, and Tịnh means pure, purified, pure, and Khẩu means your speech. So noble silence is a chance for us to be able to purify our speech. Sometimes we also use the Sino-Vietnamese chỉ tình, yeah, which means chỉ means shamatha, means stopping, and tịnh also means pure. So stopping to stopping to purify. So that gives us a good idea of what is meant by noble silence. It's really to help us stop the usual way our mind is working in order to be able to purify our mind, to purify our thinking, our way of thinking. So every day we have a chance in different circumstances to practice noble silence. And there's also the way of choosing to practice noble silence for yourself, maybe for 10 days or for 15 days, in order, because you see that there is some kind of thinking in you that needs to be purified, and so you ask the Sangha, please allow me to practice noble silence for 10 days or 15 days. So if we ask the Sangha like that, we need to make a formal request, not in front of the whole Sangha, of our mentor, and we need everyone to know that we're going to practice noble silence, and that means that we really make a commitment to practicing noble silence. We don't just do it half-heartedly. We do it with all our heart, and we know that the Sangha is there supporting us. And when you ask your mentor, or you ask the Sangha, may I practice noble silence? You also need to look a little bit deeply. Is it really going to be a hindrance or a difficulty for the Sangha? For instance, if I'm involved in some kind of project, or maybe, I don't know, some kind of work that I have to do, which I need to communicate a great deal, then it could be a problem for the Sangha if I practice noble silence. So it might not be a good idea to continue the project, continue the work, and continue and practice noble silence. So that is something we need. There are times when we shouldn't practice. And every day when we wake up in the morning, we remind ourselves that this is another day for me to practice. Normally in Plum Village we don't offer silent retreats for the general public. But there is really a need for silent retreats, and people are always asking us, please organize silent retreat. And sometimes in Plum Village I remember only twice when we organized a silent retreat. Once was for 2 weeks, and I can't remember the other how long. And when I was living in Germany, in the institute, I used to offer silent retreat twice a year, which people say they enjoy very much. But because in Plum Village we have our family retreat, we cannot possibly have silent retreat for families. I remember when I first came to Plum Village, when Thai was giving the orientation, because in those days Thai used to give the orientation. Thai said that in the retreat we have to cut down our talking by 75%, at least 75%, 95% if you can. So all the retreatants were told that they have to talk much less. I don't know if we still remind that in the orientation now. So that's one way of practicing over a long time. And then there are times during the day when we practice noble silence. Like when we are walking, we don't talk. When we are in the toilet block, we don't talk. Because when we're in the toilet block, it is a place where people practice mindfulness. They practice mindfulness with using the gathas. Whether we use the gatha for urinating or use the gatha for washing our hands. And we need the calm and the quiet to practice that. So normally in the toilet block we need to have a sign to remind people noble silence is to be practiced here. Yeah, to me that is something quite important, which sometimes we forget about. Because the toilet block is not a place to joke and to laugh and to make a lot of noise. It's a place of practice. And then of course every day we have the practice of noble silence from 9:30 in the evening or something until after we have eaten breakfast. And that is the time when we can take good care of ourselves. One of the benefits of practicing noble silence is that we can save ki, we can save chi, we can save energy. When we speak, we lose the breath energy. And when we practice noble silence, we can save a lot of breath energy. Thai used to tell us that when Thai went on tour in the United States, I have to give many retreats and public talks. Thai had to be very careful in order to be able to save energy. And in order to be able to do that, Thai used to say, Thai will not say anything or do anything that is not necessary. So this means that Thai would only say what he really needed to say. So the practice of noble silence, it gives us a chance to look deeply, to see that I say many things during the day which I don't need to say. And sometimes you want to say something, but you're practicing noble silence, so you can't say it. And you think, oh dear, I can't say that. Maybe something will happen that I don't want to happen. But still you can't say it. And then afterwards you see that nothing happened. Nothing went wrong because you didn't speak. That is one of the benefits that I have from my practice of the 2-week silent retreat in Plum Village. Because I was organizing that retreat, I thought I needed to say a lot. Otherwise things would go wrong. But in fact they didn't go wrong when I didn't speak. And when we practice noble silence, we can use, in Plum Village, we suggest that you use a pen and paper, that you write. And some people say that isn't pure noble silence if you write. But when you write, it slows down your thinking. And it's not the same as when you think in your head with words. You write down and then you can read what you write. So it is a way of helping me to look deeply when I'm practicing noble silence. Because often when we ask to practice noble silence, it's because we have a difficulty. It may be because we have a difficulty with another person.
Dạ, con xin lỗi sư mẹ là mạng bị rớt rồi nên xin sư mẹ hoan hỷ đợi cho một chút ạ. Cảm ơn sư mẹ. Dear sisters, now no internet, so please wait for a few minutes and we will fix the problem. Thank you.
Oh, nhiều hết pin, cái này hết pin rồi. Cái này hình như hết pin. Yeah, but when I do the exercise, it'll get out of. So when I finish, you can do. Okay, where are we? Feet are shoulder length. Keep your knees straight. Don't move your knees, just your torso. Breathing in, breathing out. In, out. Other direction. Okay, breathing out. Breathing in, stretch your abdomen. Breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Heels together on your toes. Breathing out. Breathing in. Được rồi hả? Có màn hả? Rồi. Please sit down. With you. Sounds okay, huh? Not as bad as before, huh? It's turned on, huh? On. So, dear Sangha, there are some meditators who practice, who make the vow to practice noble silence their whole life. I remember near the Kim Son monastery in California, there's I think a Hindu ashram, and the guru there, he practiced noble silence his whole life. And when we read in the sutra, we read about the three monks who were living in the forest when the Buddha left the Sangha, and the Buddha visited the three monks, Anuruddha and Kimbila and another monk, I forgot his name. And the Buddha asked, how are you practicing? And they said, oh, we practice noble silence except when we have Dharma sharing. So normally when we have silent retreats, we still have Dharma sharing for people to be able to share their practice. It's still an important part. So in another sutra, when the Buddha talks about how to take care of your thinking, the Buddha says the one way to take care of your thinking is to slow it down. It's like if you're running very fast and you want to stop, you have to run slowly before you can stop. You can't run very fast and then suddenly stop. So the same with your thinking. If you're thinking very fast, you can't suddenly stop. It needs to slow down your thinking and then it will stop. So the benefit of practicing noble silence is you can watch your thinking, and when you watch it, it slows down. And then, if you're lucky, it will stop. And that is in fact what is meant by noble. When we talk about noble silence, it means the silence not just of your talking, but the silence of your mind. So first of all, we need to quieten our mind when we have a difficulty, and then we need the time to be able to look into our difficulty. And while we're doing that, we can use a pen and we can use paper. And we can write down the things that we feel that we want to say to the person we have a difficulty with. And while we're practicing, we can look at that and we can see, if I say this, will it really help the situation? So for instance, if you know you're going to do beginning anew with someone with whom you have quite a difficulty, then you can practice the noble silence in order to be able to prepare and to look deeply at what you want to say, what you really want to say from your heart. And of course that means you need to look deeply into your difficulties, what you feel, why you feel so upset, what the other person does, and so on. And so you can write all that down. And then you find the way to say it, which is a way that the other person can understand and can respond to. So there are times when we need to practice noble silence during the day, which is not the specific time, like when we're walking or when it's in the silent meal or something like that. But there are certain circumstances when we need to practice noble silence as part of right speech. I think this is very important to remember, that noble silence is part of the practice of right speech. So right speech means we know when to talk and when not to talk, when to be silent. We know that when we're in a situation where people are talking about other people who are not present, so this is something that we can fall into. It's a kind of habit that we can fall into. Sometimes it's called gossiping, and the other person is not there, but we both have a difficulty with that person, or several of us have a difficulty with that person, so we take the opportunity to talk about that person. And we talk in such a way that we water the seeds in each other of what we don't like about that person. So that is something very important to remember, not to, when you feel, oh, the seed of my dislike of that person is being watered, you know that this is the time for you to remain silent, or to say, this person is not here, let's not continue this conversation. Of course, there are times when we have difficulty with someone and we really need to share. We need to share that, oh, this person, I need to find a way out of the difficulty I have with this person. So I need the help of a sister who I practice, who I know has a strong practice, and I can ask her, please help me with the difficulty I have with this sister. And then the sister who is helping you will say, what is the difficulty? And then you will say what the difficulty is, even though that other sister isn't there, in order for you to receive help and know how to deal with the difficulty. So in that case, it's fine to talk about a difficulty, as long as you do it because you want to end the difficulty, and you're not watering seeds that are making it worse. So that's one time when we need to practice the noble silence, and not to talk about what is right and what is wrong. More we talk about what is the suffering and what is the suffering of the other person. And another time which helps me to practice noble silence is sometimes when I ask somebody to do something, or I lend something to somebody, and the other person doesn't do it, or the other person doesn't return what I lent them. And I always used to find very helpful one precept that is in the traditional Pratimoksha, but it's not in the revised Pratimoksha. And in that precept, I think a layperson, because the monks and nuns were not allowed to keep money, therefore they sometimes, a donor would give them money to buy a robe. They didn't need a robe, and they weren't allowed to keep, but they were allowed to give the money to a layperson to take care of the money for them. And so in this case the monk gave to a layperson. The layperson was very poor and needed to buy some food, and so he used the money of the monk to buy food. And so when the monk asked for the money back, he didn't have the money to give. And in fact, he was about to receive his wages the next day, so he knew that he would have the money to give back the next day. So he said to the monk, I'm sorry, I can't give you the money now, but I'll give it to you tomorrow. And the monk said, not good enough, you have to give it to me now. Mm. And so he said many, many times. Or he said, maybe it wasn't tomorrow, maybe it was in a week or 2 weeks or something. So he came and he told this person, you have to give it back to me. And he told him 7 times. And so that after that there was a precept. And it said that if somebody doesn't do something you want them to do, if somebody doesn't give you back something you lent them, you can ask them 3 times. But after that you have to let go and don't ask any more. So that has sometimes been quite helpful for me, and that is a chance to practice noble silence. You forget it completely. Not only you don't ask the other person anymore, but in your head you don't talk about it anymore. You've let that thing go. Mm. So the other thing is, should we offer silent retreats for people? Sometimes we have the noble silence we have until after lunch. Make it a bit longer. And sometimes we offer silent retreats. And some people say that when we offer a silent retreat, we should only have people who are experienced in the practice. Because people whose practice is not very strong, is sometimes very difficult for them to practice noble silence over a long time, and they become very frustrated and unhappy. So in the end, I have to give them a consultation, and if I can help that person who's having difficulty to being silent, it's good, but if I can't help them, they will leave the retreat. So that is why some people, when they offer silent retreat, they say you should have practiced a long time before you can have a silent retreat. When I offered silent retreats, I used to have the Dhamma sharing every day. And many people, they enjoy the silence so much that we sat the whole Dhamma sharing and nobody said anything. So after that, I didn't put Dhamma sharing on the schedule anymore. But we did practice tea meditation together. So, dear sisters, you have anything you want to ask about noble silence? One time in Upper Hamlet, they have a very, very good Yam, a very good mindfulness observer in the form of Kai Li, huh? Yeah, Chinese brother who stayed in Upper Hamlet. And every night when the noble silence began, he would walk outside the monks' rooms, and he heard any noise inside. He would knock on the the door. Sometimes Brother Abbott also have his door knocked on. And after a while, the Upper Hamlet, they practice the Noble Silence very well. So I don't know about the Yam Nim in Lower Hamlet, whether when the Noble Silence begin, we go around and we see, is there enough silence in the building? Yeah, so thank you. If you have any questions, please ask. If not, we can. Yeah.
Dạ, con kính bạch xong, con kính thưa sư cô, con xin phép hỏi một cái về sự thực tập im lặng hùng tráng. Thì với con thì im lặng hùng tráng là cái sự thực tập cá nhân mà con rất là thích. Nhưng mà con thấy ví dụ lâu lâu mà mình tự động mình thích và mình muốn trải nghiệm cái sự thực tập im lặng hùng tráng, thì khi mà xin phép đại chúng á, thì thường hay bị có cái tâm lý là chắc là mình đang có cái vấn đề gì đó thì mình mới yêu cầu được im lặng hùng tráng. Thì con thấy là cái điều đó nó có không biết là nó có yểm trợ cho những cái sự tự nguyện thực tập im lặng hùng tráng trong đại chúng hay không? Cảm ơn sư cô.
So, dear Sangha, the question is about making a request to the Sangha to practice Noble Silence. And Sister really enjoys the practice of Noble Silence. And she has sometimes she wants to ask the Sangha, and the Sangha often thinks, oh, that sister asking Noble Silence, they must have a problem. So at that point you kind of feel, oh, maybe I won't ask. Yeah. I think that we can say when we ask to practice Noble Silence that we don't have any particular problem, but we find that we need to conserve our breath energy. That is normally the reason why I like to practice Noble Silence, is because I need more energy. I don't have enough energy. So we can always say that, and that is maybe a reason. I want to conserve my breath energy. And sometimes we have a specific practice that we want to do. We don't have a problem. But for instance, we want to practice loving kindness meditation. Then we can also say, I want to practice Noble Silence in order to develop loving kindness meditation. And so make it clear to the Sangha the reason we want to ask. And if the Sangha doesn't understand and they have wrong perception about us, that is a little bit hard luck for the Sangha. We've done our best. And don't worry too much about wrong perception of some people in the Sangha. I don't think everybody will have that wrong perception. Anything else? Nothing else, we can end here.